This lovely lady. A very, very warm welcome to you, Dr. BB, or shall I say Dr. Petla. It is always an honor just to have you in studio with us because we know that you've got quite a hectic schedule between the coaching and all of the other work that you do.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so honored to be here to share this afternoon with you.
Absolutely.
You look amazing.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So let's start here. For those who don't know what Heaven on Earth is all about, how was it founded and what exactly is the mindset behind Heaven on Earth?
In simple terms, I would put it as the part of the Lord's Prayer. Let thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven.
Mhm.
Because most of the time we think there's the Bible, then there's the real life. But the Bible was meant to guide us to live the life that we're supposed to live. So it's about eventually seeking to get to a place where you can actually connect to the Creator's vision,
Mhm.
mission for humanity. For me, it came about the life of my grandfather who passed away 11, 12 years ago,
Yes.
who was successful in an era where it was not realistic, it was not practical, it was not normal for a black man to succeed in that way. And I realized that actually this is real when God says he basically should bring heaven on earth. When he says he'll bless you in every way, it's actually a real thing on this very earth. So it brought the awakening for me that, oh my God, actually it looks like there's a certain way of living life
Mhm.
so that you can experience God, life in its best form. And it's something that you have to desire, connect to, but it's possible.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just thinking and really wanting to incorporate our listeners at home that they too can be a part of the conversation. Definitely send us those WhatsApp messages and voice notes. The number to dial is 0826572729 if you would like to speak to Dr. BB, just to ask her along the conversation that we'll be having because we're talking wellness throughout and leading a balanced lifestyle. Now, with the kind of work that you're doing, the business coaching, the fact that you're a medical doctor and you have you're a mother, you're a wife, you've got a plethora of roles that you need to play. How does one, number one, begin to really balance all of these out and not lose yourself in the process?
Yeah, I guess that's when the coaching or mentoring or role modeling comes in because there's no way that you can know everything by yourself, but you can take a little bit of everything from someone.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a structured manner, you need to get to a place where you have perspective because obviously you have to believe in something.
Yes.
You have to stand on something. So, you get to a place where you understand that, okay, there are so many balls that one has to be juggling the whole time. And you want to try to find a way of keeping the balance. And what will dictate to that is when you understand where you fit in and what are your primary roles,
Mm-hmm.
what are your secondary roles, because that helps you to decide how you're going to disperse your time, the ratio of how you spend your 24 hours every single day, because all of us only have 24 hours.
Yes.
So just having that perspective of saying, okay, what is a human being all about? What makes a human being thrives? And what challenges a human being? And what do I want out of this? What am I hoping for? Then have a structure. Because if you go on Google, there's so many suggestions about do this, look at yourself like this.
Mm-hmm.
And to a point that sometimes you don't even know
Mm.
because everybody's giving you so many different advices. But from a perspective of medicine and also from perspective of the Bible and life experience, one has come to I have personally created a model to look at everything holistically so that you know where everything fits in. So we can literally look at it from the model is made in such a way that is a hierarchy.
Okay.
That is the foundation, that is the basis for everything to start. It's a modeled pyramid.
Okay.
At the base, you have your rightful self-identity.
Mm-hmm.
Above that, you have your purpose, and then at the peak is then passion. The reason is in that order is before you do anything or engage in anything, you have to have some sort of identity, because that is going to determine how you engage in everything that you do. The reason there is rightful self-identity is because so many people can give you so many identities.
Sure.
You can even give yourself so many identities, and you find that you are still left confused, buggled.
Yeah.
And every day changing your model, your beliefs, because it just means you have not gone back to the base. So the question is, what is the base? What is the basis of that rightful self-identity? So that should be the one who created you. Because when anyone creates something, they do have a purpose for that thing. So it's not something that somebody can tell you that, you know what, I think your purpose is, okay, let's go to some ritual or on a training course to try to figure out what your purpose is. So now the rightful self-identity allows you to know, okay, who am I? The question can only be answered by the one who created you, which is God. And then God puts it this way: seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things shall be added unto you. Because when you follow that order, it means when you know Him, you'll know yourself. And that type of perspective does not change based on what is happening around you or the people, what people around you are going through, because it becomes a fixed thing for you, and it's a solid foundation, and it gives you the confidence to engage. And even when you go through the deepest, darkest hours, you still know that He says, but He is with me. When you know Him, you know yourself. And then when you understand that, oh, okay, basically the one who created me is the only one who can tell me who am I, why I'm here, then it means He's the only one also who can tell me what is my purpose on this earth. Purpose is quite simple, as much as we complicated. Even if you look in the dictionary, purpose is what something is created for.
Yes.
So a man is created to be a provider and a protector. As much as we want to say, oh no, I can do these things. Yes, we can do so many things. We have gifts, we've got abilities that were given unto us. So there are certain things that are basic fundamentals, and then everything else is added onto that. So family is everything for God, because that's how He can reproduce and express Himself through families. There's no other kingdom that He's talking about.
Sure.
That is where He's producing. And as you produce, He gives life. You give life in terms of what the environment that you create for the children you bring on this earth. So now for a woman is to be that nurturer, right? And nurturer for the husband and for the kids. Nurturer, somebody who's a teacher, who is loving, who is guiding, who's warm. I guess that's why women have cellulite and men don't, because somebody who's a nurturer has to be soft and plummy. So we can excuse ourselves for all the cellulite and feel bad.
A nice little excuse for that.
Yes.
But it's so interesting that you mention purpose, and that in seeking one's purpose, you really have to go back to your creator. And there's so many ideologies out there, particularly because we're living in a digital era where we are continuously bombarded by information disseminated through social media, through this platform or another. When did you come into being to really understand who you are and what you've been created for? Because you're doing a plethora of things. What came first? Was it the business coaching? Was it the medicine? What came first? And tell us a little bit about how your story unfolded.
Well, it's a long story because I'm already too old. Okay, so anyway, so it's been a journey of, growing up, you're just doing what you need to do. You go to school, you're under a structure. You don't even think that far. Yes, if you're fortunate, you can even start planning for the future in terms of this is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to do. Then you finish your studies, and along the way, you're learning lessons. You're being exposed at any point to people's perspectives, beliefs, and your own environment dictates. So what also comes into play is how your subconscious programming was done, which is what happens in the first 7 years of life. Everybody goes through that.
Sure.
So that's why the Bible says, raise your kids, basically, in my ways. The reason He says in His ways, because they are His, which sometimes you forget and you think, no, I'm going to do it my way. I want my children like this. But He's saying, raise them in my ways, so that even when they're old, they will not depart from that.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite scriptures, Proverbs 22, train up a child.
Yeah. There's a reason for that, because He knows as you grow, the challenges that you go through, they will come.
Mm.
But if the child is trained in his ways, it just means that they will be okay.
Mm.
But if you didn't train them in his ways, they get to the future, then it's really hard. Everything is really confusing. Just never get to a place where you are settled as you are growing and you're going through challenges and you bounce out of it.
Mm.
And you don't have to compromise because you know who's the creator. You understand who owns everything in this world.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey until I went through my university years, had a bit of a difficult relationship there, challenging. That taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn basic things like, okay, not being too, because I suspect, because I was told that, like, oh, you're spoiled. So maybe it was true, I don't know. But I've had to learn to be tolerant, to work together, to think, to respect other people's opinions and to understand that everybody had a different childhood.
Yeah.
And the uniqueness is what makes everything unique, because nothing happens by mistake or it's bad for God, because He can still change anything for good if you trust Him.
Yes.
So it was that. Then eventually, I met my husband, and that's when I'm like, okay, God is alive. Okay, I always knew He was alive, but I was like, oh, He just came alive again.
Yes.
So with that, I think it was such a consolation and inspiration for me to finally be in a rested place where you are actually with somebody that you share beliefs with, because that makes life so much simpler.
Yes.
Because you don't have to be arguing about basics, so to say, because you're on the same page. You'll still be having some differences, which is normal for all relationships, but the basic fundamentals must be shared values, shared beliefs, such things, because it makes life so much easier. So around that time, then I got inspired to start speaking. I was actually very shy all my life. I could never speak to anyone. Suddenly, I had a suddenly moment where something just said to me, prepare your event, your first event in a big hall, invite women. It was something extraordinary for me. Then that's when it started. That was 2010. Then I've been doing that ever since until now, in terms of talking to women, coaching, mentoring, studying, because I also did my MBA around 2010. And that was also around the time now where the business side of things came in, when I started noticing my grandfather as this entrepreneur, as somebody who answered most of the questions I had with my own life. Why am I always thinking of business ideas? I couldn't, even today, I'm always thinking, okay, what can I do to make money? Okay, it's not working. What can I do to make money? To a point that at some point I was so frustrated. Why was I like that? But then he answered that question for me. Then I realized that, okay, maybe this is probably genetic. I come from that. So it's probably in me. Then I embraced it. But I just had to restructure that. By the time he passed on, that's when the book part came in. When I released my book, it came after I had the realization that, because I was traumatized about his death, it was the first time for me experiencing loss. It was a lot. And I was like, why are we born just to die? And the very relationships are the ones that connect us to people, are the very thing that gives us the pain when that person leaves. And God is like, no, you're not just born to die. You are born to create. On this very earth, you are born to create experiences that you want, but I have created this platform for you to decide. You can create and experience heaven on earth, and you can still create hell on earth.
Sure.
So you decide, and it's simple. Just come to me, keep it simple, do the work, you'll be okay. So it's been a journey. I hope I've captured the essence, and along the way, mother of 3, I'm running my practice, I'm doing the coaching, I'm doing a few things. Thank you so much for asking. And now I almost went on and on talking about my life. The story is long, like I said.
I think you've summed it up very well there. I think, when you mentioned in 2010, that was the time we started hosting women. Did you really know what it would turn out to be, hosting women and knowing that you're going to be having open, honest conversations with women? What was the main focus? Was it health particularly? Did it start? Was the point of departure health, awareness? And then what has it branched out to at this present moment?
Initially, it was big on health, in terms of, because that's what I do on as a medical doctor, making women aware of the basics of health, because sometimes we just take our health for granted. You're like, my grandmother never did a pap smear. I don't have to do a pap smear. Simple things like this. So basic education around what are the basic checkups for a woman, because as a woman, you are the one who has to nurture the kids and be there, make sure the husband himself gets to a home that is comfortable. So a woman has a very pivotal role. So you want to be vital, because every time a mother dies, it's always worse than when the father dies, because the mother will do whatever she needs to take to still be that nature. So it was from that health wise, and the other big thing was relationships.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because I was like, you know what, we take this for granted and we stay in relationships that kill us emotionally, spiritually, until you die and you have nothing to live for. But you are a moving body, but you are so dead inside because of the painful experiences. And you end up accepting, because you think
it's the norm.
Yeah, like everybody's going through this. Why do I want something different? Then it was that thing that it doesn't have to be like that. It can be like that, but it doesn't have to be like that.
I like that. If you're listening to us and perhaps some of these topics that are coming up are really speaking to you, do send us a WhatsApp. The number to dial is 0826572729. Just on the other side of 5:30, we will firstly go to the headlines, and then we get to our favorite part of the show towards the end of Spectrum. We will be doing a little bit of Bible mania. And we're continuing with our conversation with Dr. Vitumelo Petla, who's a medical doctor as well as an entrepreneur and the founder of Heaven on Earth Hierarchy and Performance Model. So, Dr. Bibi, I think there are a couple of our listeners that are maybe just thinking, how do we ensure that the three things that are quite important in one's life, the spiritual man, the financial aspect of navigating through life, perhaps even relationships, and then our bodies, the physical part, how do we keep all of this in balance to ensure that we thrive, to ensure that we become the best version of ourselves?
Yeah, that is actually the best way to start the year and live your life, when you are conscious of the fact that all of them have to coexist. Because when there is misalignment, that's when there is disease. There's physical disease and there's spiritual disease. So how do you keep the health of those three key points that you just mentioned here? And it's amazing that the Bible speaks about that, because we think there's always this separation between the Bible and the world, but actually the world is living from the Bible, because God wants us to physically experience what He's talking about. So in terms of the spirit, we should seek for that spiritual intelligence, or we can call it discernment to always know what is truth. So the spirit is truth, and it always seeks to express itself, because that is God Himself, that is His nature. That's why He says He exists in us, and it is that thing at the back of your mind that always says no, yes, no, yes, when you have to make decisions. And the amazing thing with God is we know that He is not forceful. He wants you to invite Him. So it's something that you must seek, versus the opposite, where there's forcefulness to a point that you don't have time to even decide. So God is a God of peace, and He says, I knock, I stand and I knock. So you have to look out for Him and stand up and go and open the door, meaning He's already there, but just open the door. So this, for spiritual health, you have to be always asking God to say, grant me wisdom, because He says only He can grant wisdom.
Absolutely.
And when wisdom lives within you, you are able to discern in every situation, in relationships, your money decisions, all forms of when you're studying. So God exists, and He wants to help us in everything that we are doing. So the spirit is truth, and it wants us to be in alignment with how God sees us. That's where the rightful self-identity comes in. And every time when we are in misalignment, there will always be a physical manifestation also, that something is not okay. Because even pure disease can just come from you having turmoil between what the spirit wants and what the body wants.
Yes.
So the spirit is truth, and the spirit wants to be aligned. It's always seeking to help you to align whatever that you need to do. I will move to physical health. So there's this concept of body intelligence. So body intelligence has to do with you being able to listen and actually hear your body, because the body also has intelligence to, it's like with a car, especially, the latest models of cars. They will tell you that petrol is low, oil is low, water is low, tire pressure is low, and even how much tire pressure you need.
Yes.
Depending on the sophistication and the investment that you have made. So meaning the more you invest in yourself,
the more in tune your body
the
will
more
be.
in tune your body will be. So you hear more, then you can attend to it even more. I'll give you an example. Sometimes you are sitting with someone, and then as they are talking, suddenly you get a headache. It's either your body is telling you, so the body is always actually signaling for the spirit and physical needs. So if from a physical perspective, you could be having a headache because maybe you're dehydrated.
Yes.
Maybe you didn't sleep well. So there can be so many other reasons that could be given that physical manifestation, but spiritually it can be that what the person is saying is in conflict with what is in your subconscious, or what is in your belief system. I'll give you this trick. If you're in any relationship or you're talking to someone and you really want to know how they feel about anything, say whatever that you want to say. If they yawn, so that is body intelligence. Yawning is not something that you say, let me yawn now, it's time to yawn. It happens from a deeper place.
Yeah.
So if
it's just automatic.
Yes. So yawning usually reflects on dissonance between subconscious and the conscious, or the conflict between physical and spiritual. So the spiritual still manifests physically and vice versa. So you need to get to a place where you are in tune with yourself, so that you are able to discern when you are in any situation, to say, why am I having a headache? Why am I suddenly having a runny tummy? The body saying,
why am I tensing up?
Why am I tensing up? And that is part of discernment. So that is the intelligence that God has put in a body. So you should be aware and not force a situation where the body has spoken to say what you are listening to, what is being suggested to you is against what you believe in. And sometimes, of course, you can also be against something that is good, but because you were taught the so-called bad one, you always have that prejudice opinion, because you were told that, okay, this person is bad. And then you get to meet that person and you're like, but this person is not as bad as they told me.
Yes.
So now consciously, this person is good, but subconsciously, what was recorded in your subconscious is
it takes time to erase those kind of subconscious thoughts.
Yes. So you can't even erase them. So you have to retrain your brain, and with repetition of whatever new thought that you want. That's where we talk about renewal of the mind.
Oh, wow.
So you cannot erase what is in the subconscious that was taught in your upbringing. You can only override it by creating new habits, repeating the new habit, repeating the new thought. That is the only way. So when you're talking about physicality, eventually it's about stress management physically. Because when we fail to manage stress, disease from stress, basically. When we are stressing, there's stress hormones that are released. And it is a normal response to have stress hormones. But the body should also be able to get relief from the stress hormones, so that it goes into a state of rest and renewal to do its own maintenance. So you can imagine, if you're always stressed and your body is always in overdrive, there's no maintenance happening on cellular level. So that's where disease accumulates. So eventually it's about stress management. So body intelligence is about being in tune, so that you can hear and feel what your body is saying.
To just know when to take time to rest.
That's it. Versus what is being said. I mean, even if you have serious target, there's a time where you say, I'm going to push myself. But there's also time.
You're preaching to me. I just feel like you came here to just call me out.
Yeah.
Just know when to rest.
Yes.
And not even feel guilty about it. Because I'll tell you what, with the kind of society that we're living in, it's literally one thing after another. Everything is fast paced. The driving, the getting meals sorted, whatever it is, everything is in such a fast paced way as compared to perhaps 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, true, because we're in a globalized world. We have access to information. We have access to the whole world. So there's overdrive, and because of that, and because we're human beings, we always want to be better, compete. On average, people are very competitive, and to a point that is against your own, thriving, and sometimes even survival. So that's why it doesn't make sense sometimes when you see somebody in their 40s, 50s, dying, and they were the most productive people you know.
Mm.
But it's because they just mastered the one, they kept the one ball in the air and dropped all the other balls. Then they get to 40s, 50s, and then there's that sudden collapse. Then you ask yourself, what happened? This person was the most productive. But you find that they never allowed themselves or had the information or were affirmed enough to say, okay, there's time for everything. I'm not going to be a hero to everyone all the time.
Mm.
I can only do so much. Let me also recharge myself so that I can do what I need to do.
Mm.
So I'm going to just share a little bit of practical tips. What should you do on a regular, actually every day,
Mhm.
just to, that's how you manage the stress, by actively every day working on your physicality so that you keep your physicality under control so that the spirit is in control. Because the ego is always the one that is fighting us to be able to work together with other people, to rest when you need to rest. There's nothing wrong with being competitive, but sometimes it's about beating somebody else, then it becomes unhealthy.
Mm.
So when the spirit rises, the only way for the spirit to rise in actual fact is for the body to be submerged under the rulership of the spirit, to put it under pressure so that the ego dies and the spirit will rise. So practically speaking, on a daily basis, 10 things. What we eat is important. We've heard that. And we know it's difficult. But what we eat is important. You can't have a perfect, meals, but make sure that most of the time you are eating more fresh foods, less refined foods.
Mm-hmm.
You're drinking your water. Water is very, very important. Actually, most of the diseases is because the cells are dehydrated. So just drinking adequate water goes a long way. Exercising 20 minutes a day is adequate. 20 minutes a day is adequate. You can even just do a brisk walk. That is adequate. Science now has proven that 20 minutes is adequate. So you don't need 2 hours training.
Yeah.
Because when are you going to work?
Mm.
So 20 minutes is adequate, and you can attend to your other roles and your responsibilities. When it comes to sleep, sleep is important. Ideally, if you can sleep between 9 to 4, ideally, because from 9 o'clock there's a hormone called melatonin is secreted in the body, but it's secreted best between that 9 to 3 in the morning. That hormone alone helps the body to renew, to recover. It helps to clear abnormal cells. It reduces our cortisol, so stress hormones, and things like that. So most of us, we sleep holding our phones, the TV's on, the lights are super bright. Everything that is counter the body being able to help itself just by sleeping in the right conditions at the right time. Quiet time is very important. So quiet time is time that you create to hear God, to hear what your spirit is saying, because God is always talking. That gives us a lot of clarity on a lot of things. And quiet time, you create it, especially when it's also quiet, because it's in that quietness that you can actually hear God. Because in the busyness, you cannot hear anything. So that is critical. Another thing, healthy relationships. Healthy relationships are built on boundaries, knowing what I can do, what I can't do, who I need to be around, who I don't need to be around. So relationships, they have a sense of responsibility. You do what you need to do, but when you've done what you need to do and you it's not working out, you also need to know when to pull out.
I actually want to just quickly chip in there, if you allow me. My sister, big shout out to you, big sis. I was having an issue setting boundaries with someone in terms of business, and she said, just remember this term: good boundaries will set you free.
Absolutely.
I've never forgotten that. It is absolutely true. When you have good boundaries, there's so much that just you are so free instead of trying to overexert yourself. Like you said, being a hero to everyone. You're here, you're there, you're everywhere. You're trying to please everyone else, and then it ends up as a burnout.
That's such a reality. And most of us tend to be pleasers because we want to be loved, we want to be accepted. So we are scared sometimes to say no. We are scared to say not today because we're thinking, what if I lose this person? What if they think that? So we're so concerned about such because probably we don't understand who God says we are, because only God gives value. If you've done your best in anything, on anything, is adequate. Anything beyond that, it's got nothing to do with you. Yeah. So I'm moving to personal development. It's important to always be developing yourself, because when you don't develop yourself, that's when envy comes in sometimes, because you become stagnant. You've got nothing that is challenging you. You don't have ways of stimulating your own brain, and you having to reach targets. So with that alone, then you start making people targets because you've got no data to process. So personal development is important. Any form of personal development will go a long way. Moving to planning and execution. Planning alone reduces stress because when you plan, you know where you're going, when you're going. Compared to just always bumping to situations, they invite you there, you're going, they invite you there, come back, you're exhausted, you've achieved nothing.
You can't even account to yourself what it is that you've actually achieved.
And after you've done all the sacrifices, you realize nobody cared anyway. Because I've learned that people actually respect people who have boundaries.
Yes.
Who know they have value. So over-pleasing has never worked for anyone. It doesn't inspire anyone. So you plan how your day is going to look. You plan how your week is going to look. You plan how your month is going to look. That alone, planning relieves you from a lot of things. So as you're speaking to someone or as you're thinking of something and it's important to you, you put it on your plan. And the biggest thing with any plan, whatever that you want to do, execute. Because when you plan and don't execute, there's that conflict within yourself to say, but this is what you wanted to do. Why didn't you do it? And then you must easily get into a place of beating yourself up because you're like, I don't have an excuse actually for this. So you want to teach yourself to plan and execute, be reliable to yourself and to others. Another thing, intoxicants. So intoxicants is anything that is not water, basically.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're talking about obviously alcohol, sugar. Sugar is an intoxicant. So anything that doesn't filter necessarily help to filter our system is a form of intoxicant. There's also other things that we inhale, like smoking. So anything else that you can avoid, if you can avoid it, at least reduce it. Everybody's aware of what is healthy, what is not healthy. I don't want to go on and on about that one.
Yes, so definitely try and ensure that you take in more water, as you said, as most diseases are actually caused by lack of enough water intake. And then just in under a minute, what are the others that we're still looking at?
Disease management. So when it comes to disease, you want to prevent disease. If you have disease, just make sure you treat it. Don't be in denial about any condition that you have because denying it doesn't remove it. And that reduces the quality of your life and the longevity of your life. The other thing, sexual intimacy goes a long way. If you're having that with the right person at the right time, it tends to be life-giving. And the opposite is true. It causes a lot of stress. I want to touch on financial.
Yes, I think we'll just get back into the financial aspect of ensuring that we keep our lives balanced. Family and friends, I just want to encourage you to know that we're still looking out for those Bible Mania questions and answers coming through. I've seen Maggie has already answered. Oh, Maggie, wouldn't you like to know whether that answer is right? Yes, back to you, Doctor.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch on the financial health aspect, which might sound very complicated, but God has actually simplified it. In terms of financial health and what makes it work is we just have to work hard. And I think now there's a big hype about don't work hard anymore. Just something's going to come, something's going to pop in, nothing's going to pop in, nothing is going to come. We must be okay with working hard. Work hard, show up, go the extra mile and keep the faith. Literally, that's the parable of the gifts is a perfect one in this thing. We're here to multiply whatever that is given into our hands. That is my recipe.
Wow, to multiply whatever that is given into our hands. Whew. Dr. BB, I really don't know. We always have, I always just feel like time flies so quickly when you're in studio with us because the wealth of knowledge that you actually possess, man, oh man, I really hope that our listeners have taken nuggets of wisdom from this conversation. Those who actually want to get a hold of you, where and how do they get a hold of you?
The best place is my website, www.drbspeaks.co.za. So it's Dr. DRBB speaks.co.za. All my social media handles will be found there.
Okay. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much for joining us on Spectrum, and we hope for next time you're just on speed dial utle gape, and give us those nuggets of wisdom.
Because of you, I suspect I will. As you call, I shall come.
Okay, that's
Thanks so
awesome.
much.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Bibi Petla, who is, a phenomenal woman wearing so many hats, yet so gracefully. So this brings us to that time, right, where we have to bid you farewell. It's not such a fun time to say goodbye, but we've had an absolute blast with you right here in studio. Myself and Dumelo Vilagazi, who is on the ones and twos. We really thank you, family, for joining us this Friday afternoon. We hope that you're easing into your weekend. We know that it gets very hectic during the week.